You're listening to the Sunny Days Podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Good Witch, a professional psychic, healer, and coach specializing in subconscious reprogramming, inner child work, and intuition development to help you create your happiest, most fulfilling life. Thank you for tuning in on this sunny day. Hello, welcome to the Sunny Days Podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Good Witch, and today we are talking about divine partners, which is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for so long, like years, and there's so much to share with this. This may end up being like a two-parter, who knows, but I have a lot to say on it. It's a very juicy topic, which is actually part of what I have a problem with this topic. So we'll get into all of that. I actually have a lot of personal background in my own journey with divine partners, and no, it's not with my husband who is like my divine partner. It's more about being in the world of like what gets labeled as like twin flames and soulmates, and all of those kinds of divine partners that I had such a wild experience with, basically like a cautionary tale. And yeah, there's just so much to dive into. And I think the first thing that I do want to address is that I am using the word divine partner on purpose because, as far as I'm aware, I don't think there's much of a connotation with that. Meaning that words like twin flames, and like soulmates, they're so charged. There's like such connotation to it. And there, I'm sure, is a part of those terms in that world that is very like wholesome and constructive and wonderful. But there's so much that comes with those terms that is so harmful. And that's part of my personal journey, was I was like in this whole harmful world of it. Wild. So anyway, I'm using the word divine partners because I'm wanting some kind of term that hopefully just evokes the feeling of a person that you are meant to come into this world and end up being with, and kinda leaving it at that, like, they're a part of, like, your journey and what you set out to experience and accomplish, in this life as a soul, and maybe, like, multiple lives. They probably, come up a lot, and you go through your lives and your lessons together a lot, but without any of this extra connotation, of, like, who that is, what criteria they fit in order to be that kind of partner, and like how you need to be together or else like you will be so unhappy and have the worst life, and just like all this like extra stuff that comes with it. So hopefully by me saying divine partner, it can just be kind of that light terminology that's still has like that spiritual aspect, because this is a spiritual topic, but without all of the the charge, the honestly, the craziness of it. Okay, so first let's just define the other two terms, and then I'm gonna go into the twin flame world. And then we'll also go into my take on divine partners. But first off, the terms like twin flame and soulmate, we'll just go with those because they're most commonly thrown around. And again, I don't use these terms, so I'm not really defining them um in like this very specific way of how I mean them. I'm just gonna define them so you can get a sense of like how I feel like they're often brought up. So twin flames is supposed to be this person, this soul truly, where you are actually one soul, like split into two. So finding each other is very much like coming together as one. That in itself is a non-issue. That's honestly how me and my husband feel. We just like completely avoid that term for a lot of reasons. Um, but that's basically just the concept of a twin flame. A soulmate would be someone who, or a soul who is in your soul group. So you have like this soul group of these other souls where you kind of work together a lot, both in like the spiritual world and on like the human plane, where you might like incarnate in connection to each other a lot. There's like a lot of past there, and you help each other learn your lessons and everything like that. Same with twin flames, but twin flames specifically is that like you're the same soul. You're actually like one soul, but like in two different bodies, like incarnated. And then some people could um work with twin flames where the other twin flame isn't actually incarnated in there up in the ethers. It's a whole thing. But anyway, those are like the basics of it. With both cases, again, I'm just going off of like straight up terminology. We're not really diving in anything yet. But with both of those cases, it's usually taught and understood that this doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be someone who is your life partner. So with both twin flames and soulmates, you can have this really, really strong connection where they feel so familiar because either they're your soul or they're a soul that is in connection to you often. So they feel super familiar and like home, and it might feel super wonderful. And maybe they're there just for a short amount of time. Maybe their presence with you feels really constructive and it opens doors and it's wonderful and it's beautiful. And or it could be really like intense and teach you a lot of lessons in a way that is really hard for you as a human. So there's all different ways they can show up on like the physical plane in your life, and whether or not they stay in your life for a long time, for forever, for a little bit, that all depends too. They don't always have to be romantic partners. And again, if they are, this doesn't necessarily mean that they're like your life partner that you end up spending your life as a human with. So that's just kind of house cleaning or whatever they call it, getting the logistics out of the way. So my twin flame journey. Oh God. I want to talk about this for so long, but it's also so awful. But I feel like it's an important tale because not only is this helpful for anyone who's in this or could end up getting into this or just wants to know about it and like know how to navigate spiritual relationships in a way that doesn't land them in like a toxic environment and like in toxic um thought practices and approaches, right? So I definitely want to help a lot of people with this. And also recently I had a client reach out to me saying how like she has a friend like going through this and it's really hard for her to watch her friend go through it because she could see like how much it's like affecting her, but the friend's really deep in it and so was I. So I definitely want to be able to shed light on this. So for me, flashback, I had a boyfriend and we met in a way where it's like the instant we met was absolutely mind-blowing, crazy how connected we were. I had gotten a concussion. I was playing football, and I got a concussion, and he was the ref and came to help me, like call the ambulance and everything. And we just like locked eyes and he was helping me, and like people were coming up to me after and was like, that was the weirdest fucking thing. Like, you had a concussion, you were not okay, and you two were just like in your own world. Like, nothing else existed. Like, you two were just like falling in love in front of everybody. Like, and like I had like a really bad concussion. And like I was like, I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna throw up. Like, I literally, so it was like a really weird state to like just meet someone and connect like that just so instantly. And we both, upon seeing each other, like knew who we were from having seen each other in passing in the past, like a year before, because this was in college. So we obviously went to the same college, and like we both instantaneously like had like noticed each other just like in total passing before, and there was just like this already like established connection without speaking that was crazy. So immediately from then and from meeting, we were dating, we were like in a relationship, like just immediately, like in love, like all of the things, just like right away. It was just so already known, already so established. There didn't really need to be this period of like kind of getting to know each other and stuff. Like we were literally just so on the same page and like so in the flow. And it was really, really amazing. Like from me talking from this point of view, it was so amazing, so incredible, and absolutely awesome experience in love. And then we had our relationship, was going through a relationship, and things just started to be off, not really line up. And this is just more in the real world now. So as souls, it's one thing, but real life stuff started to come up where I felt like we weren't spending a lot of time together anymore, wanting to spend more time, kind of feeling like him pulling away. And like he was feeling like the pressure to make more time with me and like just more human kind of stuff. It had nothing to do with our soul connection. It was more stuff that comes up from each person, like having their own perception and their own baggage, quote unquote, coming into the relationship. So it had nothing to do with like the soul connection, right? And then that like led us to break up. And I'm going through all this in context for a reason. So I do apologize if this is just like a weird backstory about some relationship I had. But we ended up breaking up. He technically broke up with me, but it was a break. So he was saying that like he just feels very called to be on this break. Like it feels like we're having a hard time like sorting things out and like being really on the same page and being really happy and the best would be a break. I actually asked for the space first. I came to him almost like ultimatum-y. Again, this was just me kind of playing out my own wounding. Came to him kind of with an ultimatum-y about like us spending more time together. Um, or like or just complete space. He was really hurt by that and then kind of from there like checked out as if I had ended things with him. Then it comes around to where he's now making the decision that like we should have the break. So he was saying that he's not going to see anyone else. He has no uh what's it called? He has no want to, but he can't tell me what to do because this is a break, blah blah blah. So those were kind of the grounds that we were on. And then as we were on the break, we would still talk every once in a while and like we'd be like reconnecting and it was so nice like because there's that soul connection of like they feel like home and you're so on like it's just so wonderful to like be together. So that would feel really nice. And then he was going through a lot personally. He was having this like psychosomatic like rash come up and we have to go to the hospital. Like he was just under like an insane amount of stress. And there was like honestly just a lot of his own like wounding and stuff coming up for him. And I feel like he wasn't really dealing with it. He was trying to run away from it. So it was causing a lot of like physical like health issues. He ends up getting into a relationship. He wasn't really able to call it that because of this woman's religion. He was like getting into this relationship with this person, um, and they were convincing them to convert to their religion. I don't really want to mention the religion because I don't want it to seem like I am against this specific religion. I am not a fan of like indoctrination, no matter what the religion is. I very much want to leave things open to people's faith. I love all kinds of faith. Religion in itself, I feel like as a structure, is very much built as like a power play. So that is what didn't sit well with me in this situation. This is a man who was going through a very, very hard time, like emotionally, like I said, and even like with his health and physically. And this person was trying to convert them into their religion and was using like their friendship and their relationship and a lot of like convincing and persuasion to do so because my ex-boyfriend wasn't into religion. He didn't like religion at all. He was actually very, very like against religion. So it's very odd that he was slowly kind of like going with it, but he was just so lost and having such a hard time. Again, this all has to do with the story. So I hope it's worth it to apply to you or to apply to the people that you know, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, and if anything, it's just like a really dramatic story. So I guess you get the gossip on my life. So anyway, they're in this relationship. They can't really call it relationship because you're not really supposed to be like dating people in this kind of religion. Um, and she like says like we need to get married and like you need to convert and he like goes with it. Like again, he's very much just from my point of view personally then and now was like trying to escape a lot of his life, escape a lot of his problems and the things that were coming up. There was a really, really big heartbreak with us breaking up, with him having thought that I was the one leaving him when I had kind of given that ultimatum. It brought up like a lot of trauma, and there was just so, so much hurt and heartbreak, not just from that moment with us two in our relationship, but that represented a lot deep, deep down and like what he's experienced in his life and his past trauma. So he's going through that. He ends up marrying her and converting like all together. And during this time where we were on a break, um, but that ended up being a breakup without it being spoken because he ended up kind of seeing this person and everything. That is when I got into the twin flame world. I don't remember exactly how it started. I was already a spiritual person. I was already like a Reiki practitioner and things like that. So I was in the spiritual world to an extent. I had always been a skeptic of the spiritual world at the same time. Um, but I had gotten into um, readings, like tarot readings that were on YouTube and on social media, and people like pulling cards and doing readings that were general, like for the public, and would relate to my life. And there was this one woman in particular, and her readings really resonated with me. And they ended up being a lot about twin flames. So that's how I learned specifically about what even a twin flame is, and like the twin flame journey and everything. So while we were apart before he was married, but while we were apart and he was with that person, um, I had built up so much from these readings with this person. That again were general readings, and then sometimes I would pay to have like the ending of the reading. Like they'd go through like the past and the present and then the future. You'd have to like pay for that, right? And if the past and present related to you, then it was worth paying for the future, right? To figure out what happened. So every once in a while I would like pay to have the reading, but most of the time I just was so um kept up in checking like what her newest reading was saying because it had like applied to my situation, applied to my life. And as I'm receiving these readings, I'm learning about like twin flames and the twin flame journey because that's what she's speaking on and saying that like this relationship that I'm struggling with, that I want to be with this person that I'm not with right now, like is my twin flame. And then um from there, you end up kind of in, or I did, and a lot of people do, in this kind of like community because there's all these other people, again, they're general readings, who watch your readings, who are even like in like a Facebook group, supporting each other like on their twin flame journey, because that's like what the readings are about. And a lot of these readings, or a lot of these people were in the same boat as me. If they weren't, they wouldn't be there if they were like happily with this person who is showing up in the reading as their twin flame, they probably wouldn't be there. So we are having the same issues of really, really wanting to be with this person and this person not being with us. Maybe they were with someone else, maybe they weren't with us. Some people would have some kind of contact with them. Some people didn't have any contact with them. Some people hadn't been together in years and with no contact for years. Some people's twin flame that they were to them was their twin flame was like married, not just like with someone else, but married. And I'm not judging anyone who's in the community. I want to be clear. I'm just painting the picture of what it's like. So that's kind of like the boat that we were all in, and then all of the details just depended on the person. There was like huge scales of where this fell. So like for me, it was someone I really wanted to be with. He was in a relationship in a sense. We did not have much contact. I didn't hear from him a lot, and I would try to manifest hearing from him, trying to hear from him and trying to have him wake up. That was a big commonality and something that was like taught, is like the twin flame waking up. So the way that twin flames are taught is that when the twin flames meet, they had this incredible connection, exactly what me and this ex had. And then they end up um, having their own shit come up, like as people, and that causes them to separate, which is what happened with us. And then there is someone who is like awakened, and that twin flame is aware that this is like a twin flame relationship, aware that they should really be together and they should work through their issues, and they're like meant to be together, and that's why they feel that way when they are together. And the other person is unawake. They are asleep. They're also known as a runner, where they um aren't aware of the quote unquote bigger picture in the divine relationship. They're more caught up in their own like shit, basically. And so they're running. They're running from their own shit is like how I saw it a lot. But they're running from you. You know, you want to have the relationship, you want to talk to them, and they often run. Sometimes they'll reach out to you, and you'll get so excited, and then you'll, you know, say something back because they reached out to you, and then you won't hear from them. That happened to me a lot, and that was like, I guess, typical runner behavior as well, where they would feel this pull to you because they want to be with you. They feel that connection deep down, but they weren't aware enough to deal with things, to stick around, to stay and to not end up just running again, or they're too asleep, you know, to like follow through. So that's how it was for me and the people that were like in the group. Again, the details were all different and to various extents. But that's what I felt as well. So then you're in this place where you're the awake one, and the other person is asleep. And one, that is awful and that sucks because you think you have this knowledge and you're being told that you're correct and have this knowledge that you should be together. Like you should. It is what's best. It is what's meant to be. And like you're never going to find anything like this again. Like this, I mean, this is your twin flame. Like this is the person. So to not be with them is like the most frustrating and hurtful fucking thing ever. So one, it's frustrating to be the awake person because you feel that way and you just want to like shake the person's shoulders and be like, "Oh my God, can we fucking be together?" And then two, being the awake person, it's taught that it's like your responsibility to awaken them. Like you need to awaken their soul and like manifest your union. There's a lot of talk about twin flame union or reunion. And you're really meant to do that because you're here meant to be with this person. And not only are you meant to be together, but oftentimes it'll be taught that you two have like this life purpose together, like this bigger purpose as souls that you're meant to do together. So there's almost like not just for you and like your happiness, and you'll never be as happy without this person, but also for like the greater good of like what you're supposed to accomplish as a soul, whatever that purpose may be that like is with the both of you. So there's that pressure of that. But anyway, you're taught to awaken them. Like it's up to you to awaken them. So there's all these like practices of you really tuning into your soul and yourself and tuning into them on like a spiritual level and talking with them on a spiritual level, like hanging out with them on a spiritual level, like their soul, like all the time. And like doing that to try to wake their human up, to like connect them to it. You're trying to basically like be in their head almost like you're trying to make it so that they will finally like get the info. Like maybe they'll get it through a dream, or maybe they'll just like finally see it clearly, like see how they're meant to be with us, and like they're just running away, and they're running away from their problems, and like they're not supposed to be with whoever they're married to or whatever. Like they're supposed to be with me, like literally wake them up. And like it's your job to do that through like all these practices. So the practices not only take a lot of like your time and energy and put a lot of like I won't really truly be happy unless I am able to do this and they're able to wake up. And like seeing that as something that's in your control is very harmful because like breaking the fourth wall here for a second before I continue on, as like a little lesson, it's very harmful because ultimately you can't control them. You can't do a certain amount of whatever practice to quote unquote wake them up. Like they're a person with their own free will and their own life, and they're allowed to run away from their problems. They're allowed to run away from you. They're allowed to be with whoever they're with and make whatever decisions they're making. And the way that the twin flame world puts it is like that you are capable of waking them up. Like at the end of the day, you're capable of that. So if you're unable to do that, you're not doing it right, or you're not doing it enough, and it's on you. And it's so defeating and it's so awful because at the same time, you being with them means like the world. Like it means your happiness. You'll never be nearly as happy with anyone else. You'll never be as soul fulfilled if you don't end up making this happen. So there's like so much weight on it happening. And also you're being told that like you are the key to it happening. So if it's not happening, then you need to fucking figure it out and do it more. So it's a lot. It's super harmful. So anyway, going back to it, it takes a lot of energy out of you because it's like a lot of your focus. And on top of that, there's a lot of manifestation that comes with it. And I also don't use the word manifestation a lot in my practice because of the connotation, because if I were to teach manifestation when I do, I teach it in a whole other way that's not harmful. So I usually just kind of not use the word, and I'll just be like, oh, create the life that you want. Um, because the word manifestation is so charged. So you would get taught manifestation in these twin flame communities because you're manifesting your union. And with that comes a lot of you have to pretend that you're together, and you have to pretend that you have what you want already and be completely in the mindset. And like even so much pretending that like even if people ask, like you say that like you have a boyfriend or husband or wife or whatever it is, you have this partner, and like even though you don't, like you're not together, and like you're single, and like you have to pretend so hard that you even have to pretend like on the outside. Like it's not just like a visualization technique where like, you tap into what you want and you feel it and you visualize it. Like you have to live it, and you have to not break that vibration and that visualization of what you want, because anytime you break it, you're like fucking it up. You're getting in your own way. Like that's why you don't have it. You have to stay there. You have to stay there as long as you can. So there is like so much lying to yourself and like even lying to others. And so much delusion. And not in a way that's like fun delusion, like in a way that's like super harmful delusion. Um, of you need to stay in what you want and like pretend that's going on. I've talked about this before with manifestation, but I do want to point out that a big reason that's harmful is because of the fact that you aren't being honest with yourself. So it's okay to visualize what you want and feel the feeling of it and tap into that. And that's wonderful. And be like, I feel that now. So that's something that I can have. And like, I feel this for me. And like, I want to keep tuning in to that because I'm tuning into the fact that it's possible. And then I can align myself from there. And that's fine in and of itself. But where it gets really harmful is, that part where it's like, you can't think negatively though. You can't think negatively about the situation. You can't be honest with yourself that you don't have this thing, or that you don't feel this way, because what you're doing is you're bringing yourself out of alignment. That's what they say. But the problem is what you're really doing is you're causing a lot of unsafety in your body, because when you lie to yourself, you know the truth. You know the truth that right now you're not with this person. You know the truth that right now you actually feel really hurt and really frustrated. You don't feel like, oh, I'm with the love of my life and they're so good to me and blah, blah, blah. No, you feel like you hate everything that's going on, and you're like, and you feel like you're not good enough, and all of these things that you actually feel and are dealing with. So you doing the pretending to get into alignment is really just ignoring yourself and causing a lot of distrust and neglect in yourself. And that causes a lot of unsafety. And when you have unsafety, what's going to happen is that you're going to have a lot of problems like in your nervous system. You're going to bring up all of your subconscious wounds and all of your ways of coping that aren't helpful. And it's all just going to come up like tenfold, um, and bite you in the ass. And it's going to cause a lot of cycles. It's going to cause a lot of cycles of, I feel really high. And this is how I felt. Like there'd be sometimes where I felt so great in this whole twin flame process, because like I would be so in it, as far as like being in what I wanted goes, and it would feel really good while I was able to keep it up. Like, oh, I'm with this person. For me, it was like a specific person I already knew. And it feels so good, and like I'm so loved, and it would feel really wonderful, and it would feel like such a high. And at some point, reality would come crashing in. At some point, I just couldn't take it anymore, or all of that subconscious shit would come up, all of that lying to myself and that unsafety feeling would eventually come up. And I would just get smacked down to earth, basically. It's almost like I was up in this cloud rising above it all and trying to live up there and trying to make my reality be up there, or bring that to reality. And then reality would come crashing down in my face, or my face would come hitting it. And it would be so disappointing and so defeating and so frustrating. And for me, a lot of self-blame, because I should be able to do this, so I'm obviously not doing it enough or good enough or blah, 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 blah. So anyway, you can see how that ends up being very harmful. So at this point, I'm, doing all of the practices, all the things. I'm very much in this twin flame world. I'm convinced that I need to make this happen, that it's the best thing for me, and that I'm able to make it happen. And like it was so much of my focus and my time, which in itself is also harmful, because no one area of your life um n needs to be that, there needs to be eggs in multiple baskets. It's okay to have your priorities and things like that. Like even in my, marriage now, like my husband's a huge part of my life for sure. Um, but the way that it sucks up everything, like it is of the utmost importance, and like it takes all of you, right, to like be in this process. It's way too much. You're not getting your needs met and your fulfillment or anything from other things. It's all coming from you being in that 5D plane where you two are together, and like that's where all your happiness and fulfillment and sense of wholeness and self comes from. Like, no, even if it feels good in the moment. So in a way, I'd be doing that a lot. I'd be hanging out with him, quote unquote, in the 5D a lot, doing the manifestation a lot. Another thing I want to point out before I forget, if this relates to you now or in the future or someone you know, is this something that would come up with me a lot and really like mess with my head, is my dreams. I would have such vivid dreams of this person and us being together, or at least him coming to me and like giving me messages. And he was just very present in my dreams in a way where, if you've ever had a dream like this, some people have maybe had it once, some people have it more often, depending on where they're at kind of intuitively. Um, but if you've ever had a dream where there are dreams that it's like your mind is projecting a movie, when you're in that movie and it's a dream and you remember it and it could be super vivid or whatever, but it's your mind projecting a movie. And then there are dreams where it's like that person was actually there. So this happens more for folks who maybe someone has passed away, especially right after they passed away, and they're like, your grandma passes away and like she visits you like a day or two after, like in your dream, and you wake up, you're like, she was there like with me. Like that was not a dream that included my grandma, or like my grandma was there and we were talking or something. Like it was like literally her presence. It's the difference between those kind of dreams. So I would be having those dreams all the time where like his presence was with me and like it was his presence. So that and at the time was so reassuring, and I would love it, and I would like want to go to bed and like experience that because it felt so good because I'm with them and I'm supposed to be with this person is what I'm being told. So it's like I just want to be able to be with them as much as I can, even if it's like in the spirit world. And yeah, so but then looking back and as I was trying to move out of this journey, it was something that drove me fucking crazy because I I didn't when I had gotten to that point, and I'll talk about how I even ended up at that point. I didn't want that anymore. It was almost like, why is this happening? You're driving me crazy. Like I want to forget this whole thing and forget you. And I have talked to people who have experienced the similar journeys as me, like this quote unquote twin flame journey, and they talk about that with the dreams. So I do want to bring up that I was having those dreams so that you know too, if you're having those dreams, I'll explain things more. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be together with this person, even though, like, wow, even my dreams are doing this and it feels so real and it's really them. And I'm not even saying that it's not actually them or they're soul visiting you. But I do want to point that out. Okay, so now I want to talk about how I ended up even transitioning out of that world. Oh my gosh, right? I'm so sucked in at this point. And then I also want to share after that everything that I now understand looking back. Again, for you, for future you, for someone you know, or if you're just curious, everything that I now understand more looking back, and also how I would now teach and explain um, divine partners and going about divine partners because I have nothing against divine partners, and I actually believe in divine partners but with a bunch of caveats and in a whole different way. Okay, so how I transitioned out of that. So at this point, I am still so fucking in it. I'm getting the dreams. I'm doing all of the things. I don't care what is going on the outside. I'm so determined, and I will make sure that everything just reassures me, that all of the signs reassure me that this is going to happen, that my dreams reassure me that um the readings that I get and the psychics that I see that they all reassure me, and a lot of these psychics were reassuring me, and that is a big reason why I do things so differently as a psychic. If you have seen me and you've seen a quote unquote like typical traditional or stereotypical psychic, you know how different we approach things. And my experience in this is why, because I was getting so much reassurance that we should be together. And like, he just doesn't understand right now. And he really loves me and wants to be with me deep down. He is just with this other person right now. But like he wants that, like stringing me along. So how I got out of it is that I was still 100% into it at this point, right? I had even met a friend, like a best friend who was going through the same thing, and we were going through our twin flame journeys together. And it was like the same kind of story. Like seriously, like my whole life was like um I was creating my whole life to like support me in this, you know? And I was at work one day and we were doing this training, and I remember we had like a 10-minute break of this training, and I just go on my phone to just go on social media. And I went on Facebook and I saw I'm just gonna make up a name. John Smith married, and it was my ex. And I was like, so shocked and so wrecked because I had thought that I had really gotten somewhere, like in the twin flame work. And every once in a while, he would reach out to me, and there would be these moments where it's like you could tell he couldn't let go of me and like wanted to be with me deep down, but then wouldn't let himself, right? So there was a lot coming up that reflected everything that I was being indoctrinated with the twin flame journey as well. So I really thought I was like getting somewhere. And you live that life where it's like any day could be the day where we have our twin flame union. Like it's so sad. Like in the moment, it's so hopeful, but you're clinging on like for your life to this hope. So it's really just so sad. So it's like any day, and like I feel like I'm closer and closer. And by this time, okay, no, I got this sign that it'll be by this date, and then that date comes around, right? So I open it up and it shows that he's married. And the reason that it showed up so um kind of out of nowhere and fast is again because of that religion aspect of like the converting and the getting married as part of the conversion. So we had been broken up for literally or like on a break, but then like I said, it really was a breakup for a year. I think it was like coming up on a year or right after a year when I found that out. So obviously not a long time to really marry someone after having gotten out of a relationship, because normally it takes a lot longer to, be single and then meet people and then meet someone and then develop into this and get engaged and blah, blah, blah. So that's why it was so short. But you could see how that was also very shocking and jarring to have that come up like that, timeline wise, and also because of how I thought I was doing and like that I had the capacity to force, like with the way that a lot of manifestation is taught, whether or not it's with twin flames, it's like you can control the situation, even if it includes other people. So I thought I was like doing it. I thought that I had this control over making what I want happen. So it slapped me in the face so fucking hard. And it slapped me in the face not only with like total grief and shock and like I was gonna be sick. I was like my whole life collapsed. But also with like realization. Like once I saw that, there was just my intuition in me that was like, I am done. I am done. And I feel like it's very easy on the outside to be like, well, yeah, like you are done. Like game over. Like he's married. But unfortunately, that's not always how it goes in the twin flame world. Like I mentioned, like in that Facebook group, so many people, their twin flames were married, and they have been doing this twin flame journey, manifesting them being together for like 15 years. 15 years. It had been like a year for me. Technically, a little less because it took me a minute after the break to kind of get into that journey and everything. But I was like, let's just round up to a year of like fully committing, like my entire like energy and being and priority, like an achievement in life was this union more than anything, more than any personal goal, like goal in my career or friendships or anything, right? Was being with this person, just dedicated, devoted an entire year. And some people, the marriage didn't stop them from being on this journey of still trying, and like for even 15 years after the person was married. So as easy as it is, I feel like from the outside to be like, well, yeah, that is kind of when you would give up. That's not the case a lot of times, unfortunately, and that makes me very sad. I feel like there's just such a hold when you're in it. And I don't know how much I was able to convey that. It's a bit hard to convey, but it's like with anything that has a big hold and indoctrination, like how religion can be. Again, I love faith. Um, so this is just my perspective, how religion can be, how cults can be, right? Like it's kind of hard to describe the the hold that it can really end up seeding in you, and having their hooks in you. So anyway, but for me, thank God, my like intuition just popped up and it was so clear and it was like, I am done. Seeing that he was married, that is it. That is the door closed. No more. I even thought about those people on the Facebook page and I'm like, I'm not doing that because like if I decide that, you know what, I can still make it happen. Like, they could get divorced. I had a psychic tell me that they would get divorced within 5 years. And I totally believed that. And who knows? I honestly don't know if they did or didn't. And I wouldn't be surprised because, again, even from my own perspective now, I do see how a lot of it was like him running away from his own shit and things like that. So I don't know how, like, what foundation that marriage was on, if it was on something like wanting to run away into something else and not dealing with your own problems, stuff like that, which obviously wouldn't be a good foundation. I don't know, right? So it is plausible. Um, and I knew that if I stepped through that door instead of allowing it to close, that I mean, then what would stop me ever, Like if I'm down to step through that door and be like, you know, I could keep going with this, like we're meant to be together. They could end up getting divorced. Like he still needs to wake up. He still needs to wake up and see that this doesn't mean that we don't necessarily get to be together. I can make that happen. Then it's like, when would that ever close? Like that could be so much of my life and so much of me going into this. So I'm so glad that I allowed that to really shut the door. Um, and I feel very fortunate that that marriage did come up fast and everything because it was really for me, that was the thing that was like the rock bottom, if you will, of where I was at and being able to turn it around. So for me, um I really was grateful that ended up happening in that time that it did. So I'd add so that I didn't waste any more time. So that's how I got out of it. Now, looking back, and I just want to share important things about Divine Partners, what I believe now, things that can help you have your own understanding of Divine Partners in a way that is not toxic and harmful and keeps you in these loops or is predatory or anything like that. Which, speaking of predatory, real fast. That is why I believe that person that was the reader who I was really hooked in with, who like taught me the twin flame thing, is predatory. Um, and this is beyond twin flames. Um, but there is sometimes it's power, but for this, it's money. And this again is my perspective, my personal experience. And it's like, when you keep people in this loop of what they want and dangle it, and that could happen, look like it's gonna happen, keep buying my readings to see how it unfolds and see what you need to do to make it happen. Keep coming to me for information on this very salacious topic that you're super, super invested in. Keep paying me and coming to me as I tell you all of this drama and like really keep your um, hopes up and keep things like on your toes um, and keep you feeling like you need to know all of this. In order to have what you want, keep coming to me for that. So I do feel like there's this predatory aspect to it, and that's um, a part of the reason that it is taught and like established the way that it is. That's why I am very specific in the way that I even do readings, for example. Like I, for the longest time, wouldn't even advertise love readings because so many people come in not realizing that they're setting themselves up to end up in that power dynamic where like they're coming in and they just want all of these answers, 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 and they just want validation of what they want. They don't really hear you if it's otherwise. And they're not really looking for any like advice or construction for themselves and for like their own love journey and empowerment. And it's just so focused on this external thing that they like need to have answers to and need to validate and have happen. So for the longest time, I wouldn't even advertise love readings because so many people come into them that way, and that's not how I do things, and that's not how I teach things. So looking back and also looking at where I end up, some very important things that I learned and I realized um, is the importance of intuition. Like how I said, it was my intuition that came up and was like, "You're done." And I needed more of my intuition the whole time on that journey. I needed so much more of it. It could have shooken me a lot prior to that and helped me get out of that and get to that end result um, not just faster, but also with so much less pain. So I needed my intuition more, and my intuition was there. I'm talking more about my uh, receptivity to my intuition, my ability to discern it, to feel it and sense it in the first place, like developing my own intuition, my sense of it. So looking back, I really needed that, and then that's something that got me to where I am and to the actual outcome, like where I am now and everything in divine partnership. And then another thing is that whole like human woundedness, because not only, like I said, was that coming up with that ex, but it was coming up in me to even be on that journey, even though it was in the guise of being a spiritual journey, like above all of that stuff. It was just me playing out my wounding, that wounding of, um, wanting something so bad and not being able to handle it, that wounding of love being a one-way street where I give and give and give and give, and I like give so much into this vision of us being together and so much love in that person's soul and like so much of what my energy, my time and give, 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 and not receive anything in return. That was my own wounding that allowed myself to do that and be in that situation and be okay with it and quote unquote fall for it, and so much other wounding as far as what I allowed myself to do and to be in and to have happen, and what I allowed to not have in my life, which is things like a two-way street. Was my own wounding that so easily gets played out in spirituality. I see it all the time. Like, for example, with the process of manifestation. And it's like, oh, it's a spiritual process. So no one's really thinking about how that spiritual process fits perfectly with like what your wounding is and how you get to just keep living it out and playing it out and still not get what you want. Oh, but you're doing this spiritual process, so it's positive and it's good. And it's you just getting to continue to play out whatever that wounding is, whatever it is that you um like, don't get to have, or whatever pain you continue to find yourself in, you just, you subconsciously get to continue to have that be your reality, even if it's guised as like, a spiritual practice, and you don't think that they're connected or relevant to each other. So that subconscious, like, wounding and really like understanding how I even was allowing myself to do that and how that happened to me and everything, and where that comes from and how to like work with myself and work with it. Again, looking back is exactly what I needed, and looking from that point in the future was exactly what got me to my actual divine partner as well. So overall, like with the intuition and like the subconscious wounding and all that entails, I feel like they're um having both really brought me this sense of self that was so much bigger than the situation. And again allowed me to actually manifest, I say like create my divine partner that I actually have and I'm married to, and having both those things, um, in so many different facets, but, like, working with myself in both of those ways and having that wholeness really led me to understand something huge that is such a big takeaway that I want to tell you about divine partners, and that is don't don't discredit what you're actually experiencing just because someone is a divine partner or you feel like they are, and whatever wording you use, twin flame, whatever, that doesn't mean that they get to treat you like shit. And I feel like I'm gonna cry. That doesn't mean that they get to treat you like shit. That doesn't mean that they get to not respond to you. That doesn't mean that you have to be in the one-way street, and that it's all up to you to wake them up. That doesn't mean that they get to run away while you still get breadcrumbs and latch on, and hope and wish and get strung along. That doesn't mean, um, that they get to, reach out to you and, lead you on and give you hope and then ghost you. That doesn't mean that they get to, be married to someone and, see you on the side. That would happen a lot. I would see that in the Facebook page, and that they get to stay married and be with someone and that they see you on the side and you don't get the full picture of what you want, um, just because someone is a quote unquote divine partner doesn't mean that you need to look over how you're being treated and what you're experiencing and what the situation really is. It is not an excuse for the relationship, for the dynamic, for that person, and for you. It is not an excuse because you are a human who is having a very real experience and has very real and valid feelings. And all of those things are true. They do exist. It's not just the 5D that exists. So, doesn't matter what the 5D is. That's cool if you're divine partners and everything. That doesn't dismiss what is going on in the 3D for you. And that is huge. That is so important to not neglect that, um, for yourself and for your own happiness and your own good, because divine partners, truly in the way that you would want for yourself and that you deserve to have and that you can have and are meant to have, don't do that to you. And you don't allow them to. And I think once you put yourself in that position of empowerment, that can help you navigate divine partnership a lot. And you need to be honest with yourself in order to do that. And the honesty comes from, like I said, it was huge for me to do that subconscious wounding and be more honest about that with myself, and also develop my intuition to be stronger so that I have more honesty with myself. But once you're honest with yourself, to be able to see like what you're allowing and what you're putting yourself in the human world just with the excuse of it being a divine partnership. So, seeing that and looking back, it's like I was in a relationship that was a one-way street. We were not together and the person was not putting in the effort to come back together with me. And if I looked at all of those things and I had that sense of self, then it would have stopped there. Like, why in my right mind would I continue? I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want that for myself, and I wouldn't. But when you have people hanging that twin flame thing over your head and the importance of it in your life and how amazing it is and how much you want it, then it's so easy to just dismiss that and like continue on. But without that thing dangling over your head, it's like I don't want this. Like, I I don't want this for myself, and I don't want this from someone else, and I want something better. And I want something where someone is like putting in all the same work, and when someone's actually like here and like committed to me, and like I want all these other things. I don't want that. But when you have that thing dangling, it's like, oh, well, that's what I really want, and I want it to be all together. And it's this person. So, know that there is no label, there is no like divine label or connection that overrides your human experience. And that you can let that go. Like, this is me giving you the permission to let that go, because there's also this part of you that's like, I don't want to let it go because of the promise of it. And because what we had at the beginning and that connection and the promise of what can be, I don't want to give up on it. I don't want to give up on myself being able to have it. This is your permission to let that go. You're you're not experiencing what you want and you're not being treated in the way that you want, you're free to let that go. And if you let that go, that doesn't mean that you don't end up having that. I ended up having everything that I wanted and 100 times more in my marriage. And I was so convinced this other person was the twin flame and that was the end all be all. I was 100% convinced. And I know you might be here and be like, well, you weren't right though, and I'm right, and I'm 200% convinced. That's what I would have said. That is exactly what I would have said in your position. I'm telling you, you can let that go. You can have all of the things that you're holding on to try to get. You can have all of those things. I have that and more. And you're like, oh, but I want to be this specific person. I would have told you the same thing. So this is me trying to wake you up now. I know, like, if you're watching this in the twin flame perspective and you're in it, you're trying to wake your twin flame up. I'm trying to wake you up, but anyway, do what you will, obviously. I'm not here to force anyone to do anything. I am just here to try to um, help you on this. Like I said, that's why I was like, it's a permission thing. So, um, sorry if I got too, too like intense there. I didn't mean it in that way, but I like feel very, very strongly about this, almost like I'm talking to past me, basically. That's why I'm coming off so strong with that. Um, that it's like I got that times 100, and I wouldn't want it to be with that other person that I was so stuck that it needs to be that person. This person is the person. Um, so I will make a part two um, about moving forward now that we have cleared a lot of, for me, the past up, but cleared a lot of misconceptions about divine relationships up, and got some insight to move forward with. But I want to move even more forward with divine partnerships and being able to step into them and like create them for your life again in a way that is not in a harmful or toxic system or stringing you along, in a way that really allows you to have the best experience and for you to not only have what you want, but be like treated well, to treat yourself well, you and to not suffer, basically. So yeah, definitely gonna make a part two, but the takeaways is the intuition development, the subconscious wounding, and with going through both of those, really being able to have that whole sense of self, to be able to see things on every level, because you don't just want a soul relationship, you want the relationship to play out as humans. So you don't want just a soul connection. You want a human connection where you can like work through shit together and like grow together, and be accepted and both be there committed to each other in two-way street and not be running away from each other and blah 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 blah. You want all of it. So in order to have all of it, you have to have all of it in yourself. You have to have that all that soul connection, like your intuition, and all of your human connection to yourself in order to have that reflected on the outside in a relationship as well, and have your relationship be connected on like the spiritual plane and the human plane. Because again, there's no point in just having it on the spiritual plane. It can just cause a lot of harm on the human plane. You want more for yourself. You want it to be working out and wonderful in your human plane as well. So let's get into that in part two. And definitely want to point out that if you are interested in the intuition development with the subconscious programming, all that encompasses and so much more, definitely check out my Love and Happiness program, because that is where I go insanely in depth and walk you hand in hand and hand step along the way about how to create that divine partnership that's meant for you and meant for you on all levels and is serving you and good for you, and in a way that brings you closer to yourself, that creates like a healthy relationship with yourself and with your person that you're meant to be with, and in a way that is giving you the power and the autonomy, and it's only making you stronger and more powerful, not leaving you weaker and more susceptible. It's really building you up and giving you the processes and the tools in order to do that. So definitely check out that Love and Happiness program. If you're listening to this in real time, it is on sale through the end of June 2024. But either way, it'll be down in the link below and you can learn all about that. I would love to see you there after this podcast. And I will either way see you in part 2. Thank you for tuning in to the Sunny Days podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and catch more of my free content by following me at Alex the Good Witch on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If this episode resonated with you, please take a screenshot, post it in your stories, and tag me on Instagram. I appreciate your time here with me today. Peace and love to you all, and I will see you in the next episode.